Hello and welcome back to the Grandmaster division of the Intermezzo Championship. After sadly not being able to win the last game, I am now standing with my back to the wall because the only way for me to stay in the league is to win my next two games, otherwise I will be relegated. But if I should manage to win my next two games, then it's actually guaranteed that I stay in the league. So I still have it in my own hands and I will try my best to get those two wins and yeah, then stay in the league. And the first opportunity to get the first win going is now in the game that we are taking a look at today, which will be against Gandin and Eepogi. And now, without further ado, let's take a look at the game. In this game, I'm playing in the third position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there's still a little bit of theater synergy. In H3, we have Chaplin and Fleming, there's the internet, but no Hollywood and no Marlene Dietrich. We have a little bit of lab synergy, there are Marie Curie and Einstein, there's the spaceflight, the Manhattan Project. We have also Mandela, but no Pierre. We have Churchill and Gandhi, as well as the Manhattan Project for the military. In H2, we have some colonization synergies and payoff cards with the Suez Canal and James Cook. We also have James Watt in the railroad. We have Anthony Gaudi as the sole culture leader, and then a Nobel, but no Newton. Also, Maria Theresa is there, but there's no ocean liner service in the game. In H1 we have no military action leader, but Nostradamus and Barbarossa to help with the strength. We have both Gutenberg and Leonardo. There's Eleanor and Columbus as both transitional leaders, but also leaders who can maybe work nicely in a colonization game. And then we have both Silk Road and Universitas, Great Wall, but no Emichi Castle, and the Machu Picchu is there as well. Eepogi is in first position and here opens the game with taking the library. Then it's Ganin's turn and he goes for Hippocrates. Could have also taken Confucius, but getting Hippocrates and a yellow card definitely might be the right choice. And then for my turn, I think it's relatively clear what I need to do. There is Confucius now available for me, who I think is a very strong leader, but not only is it, I think, a strong pick for me to go for Confucius. If I go for Confucius here, then there will be no leader available for one civil action for Eepogi, which is maybe a bit annoying for him. Either he has to spend some civil actions grabbing some yellows, or he has to overpay taking a leader from the two civil action area. So I think Confucius is just clearly the best pick here, first of all because he is strong for myself, but also to deny him from Eepogi. So I go for him, and then the only card that I can take together with him is the stockpile. Now it's Eepogi's turn. Let's see if he is willing to pay an additional civil action here for either Sun Tzu or Aristotle. Aristotle, he increases his population, builds a mine, and he is not willing to pay this additional civil action. Instead grabs the urban growth and an interestingly the patriotism. Probably wants to make it certain that he can go for one of those leaders at his next turn. And especially if he should get Sun Tzu, who knows, maybe the additional military action and the potential to apply some pressure could be useful, but normally of course not really the card that you want to take, especially not after the first drafting round where it's just not really great spending a civil action on that card. Ganin goes for Hippocrates, builds a mine, and is interestingly willing to take the Colossus for an additional civil action. Could have also taken the Acropolis, but as said at the beginning, there is the Suez Canal, there is James Cook, there is still the chance that Eepogi might go for Sun Tzu as a leader, there's Confucius in the game, the event deck might flip quickly, so definitely some arguments for the Colossus. Still, of course, a bit of a price to take it here for an additional civil action. Now it is my turn. I think again a relatively clear turn. I will go for Confucius. I will build my mine. I think there's no reason to grab something like Hanging Gardens here for two civil actions. Instead I will just increase my population and take the Engineering Genius. A relatively clean turn. If Eepogi does not go for Alex, then I still have a shot at getting the Hanging Gardens at the next turn. But there's also the Machu Picchu coming down the row. Both Universitas and Silk Road are wonders that are interesting to get early as a first wonder in the game. So I think I was just very happy having the chance here to get the Engineering Genius for one civil action and leaving myself open on whether I want to commit to an HA wonder or whether I want to go for an H1 wonder first. I get my first draw, and the vast territory is an interesting draw because there is Columbus in the game, there is Suez Canal and James Cook, so it might be worthwhile keeping that event in hand for a while. Eepogi goes for Sun Tzu now, doesn't want to go for Aristotle, elects Sun Tzu, builds the second lab, and thanks to having had the urban growth, he still has a resource left over to be able to build the first step of the library. Now it's Gandin's turn, he will increase his population, takes Barbarossa, he can maybe use him as an early replacement leader for Hippocrates. Yes, the Colossus, maybe will go for some colonization or for strength push, and in both ways, or in both scenarios, Barbarossa would be a helpful leader for him. Also, he's willing to pick the monarchy for 2 civil actions, and can maybe do a revolution at some point to get a crucial 3rd military action for Barbarossa. I don't want to push the vast territory as I want to keep it in hand for Columbus, and I also definitely don't want to seat it against a player who has Colossus and Barbarossa and another player who has Sun Tzu and also the library to keep more cards in hand. But I also don't want to miss out on the science, so I seat the knowledge of the ancients. The event revealed is the development of politics. I draw some additional cards, and especially now that I've drawn the phalanx, but probably also before, because there's Sun Tzu in the game, I think I have to take the knights here for 2 civil actions. And then for my remaining 2 civil actions, it's a bit of a question, do I want to commit to a wonder? And if yes, which wonder do I want to commit to? I could potentially also just say, let's don't go for any of those wonders. Getting either Universitas or Silk Road as a first wonder could have quite some potential. But at the end, I actually made the decision to take the Hanging Gardens here, which maybe seems a little bit odd, but I think there are some reasons for it. First of all, with playing against Sun Tzu and Colossus and Barbarossa, it certainly could be that it will turn out to be a military-heavy game, and I think in such a game, the Hanging Gardens are actually quite useful. That's maybe where the Hanging Gardens are shining, allowing myself to put more workers into the military, not being concerned about happy faces at all, having a lot of workers available, and that could help me really making sure that I will be the strongest. Also, because I didn't want to see it vast, I just pushed the knowledge of the ancients into the deck. It's of course, it's only a small reason, but still with taking an HA wonder here, I will get a bit more value out of that event later on. And if I don't take any wonder, then it's just a bit uncertain. When will I be able to get Universitas? When will I be able to get the Silk Road? Now I have the Hanging Gardens and can maybe at some point invest some civil actions into it if they are not the most interesting cards in the row. And while I could maybe go for the Machu Picchu here, it's just uncertain with not knowing whether I get iron or irrigation. Sometimes I think there are scenarios where you are willing to do that gamble, but here I just felt like I'm better off with the Hanging Gardens. And the Taj Mahal is of course not really a wonder that you want to have that early, as it only gives you pure culture production. And then with the last civil action, I built a second lab to get a little bit more of science production going. I revealed the phalanx tactic so that I can keep the colonization card as well as the vast territory in hand. Now it's Eepogi's turn, he seats and the development of settlement is revealed. He will reveal the legion tactic, increases his population, interestingly goes for the code of laws, doesn't go for the swordsman here, which could be interesting for him to have with just having revealed a legion tactic and with there being a high chance that maybe he will be the player who misses out on knights. With the last civil action, he then takes Leonardo, interestingly. As soon as he gets alchemy or maybe also a printing press, he can go for a lot of science production. Gandin seats and the development of science is revealed. He will build a second lab this turn, takes the second copy of knights, and then increases his population with the frugality. Maybe at the next turn can start going for Barbarossa. Also, as you can see, there is actually Columbus coming down the row now, and both of my opponents have already committed to an H1 leader, meaning that I'm just guaranteed to get him if I either take him now or if I maybe make sure that he isn't discarded before my next turn. At my turn, I think it's clear that I seed the Enslave into the deck as a Confucius event, and the event revealed is the development of markets. I will take some additional resources from the development of markets. I will get some additional food from the Hanging Gardens. There was also already the development of settlement revealed, so I think resources is what I need more at this point. Also, the Eventic is shortly about to flip, so I think now it's the time to maybe start building a little bit of strength, especially because I have neither iron or alchemy or anything in hand that I could use to increase my economy. So I will develop the knights, increase my population, build a knight, putting me at 3 strength, making me the strongest for now. And then I have 2 civil actions left, and I used those to first of all take the warfare. I have some additional science from Confucius. There's a Confucius event coming and the knowledge of the ancients. There's of course a chance that the knowledge of the ancients will be revealed before I will be able to finish the Hanging Gardens, but it might also turn out to give me even more science. So I thought having the warfare could be nice, helps me to get even stronger, maybe gets me some additional draws, which at some point could be useful to maybe win potential colonies that my opponents could have seeded into the deck. So I think here the Warfare is a very interesting pick. And then with the last civil action, I actually built a step of the Hanging Gardens without using the Engineering Genius to maybe, if I don't want to finish the Hanging Gardens at the next turn, give me some more options and make it a bit easier for me to get out of corruption. I don't take the Engineering Genius 1 here, as I can't use it for 3 resources in the Hanging Gardens, and as I don't know whether I will get another wonder soon. And also, I mean, Eepogi can now maybe not build any further step of the library and use the Engineering Genius nicely on the second step, but maybe also just wants to finish the library. But I also just didn't want to take a lot of cards in front of Columbus, because then there could be the chance that if Eepogi just takes 2 cards, maybe Columbus could be discarded before my turn, and with having the Vast in hand and with there being Suez Canal and Cook, also Maria Theresa, I just really wanted to make sure to get Columbus at the next turn. I draw a card, which is the Raiders. Eepogi seeds again and opens the development of trade routes. He will this turn elect Leonardo da Vinci, develops the Code of Laws, gets an additional resource thanks to having elected Leonardo. Also the Legion tactic will now be upgraded. He plays the Patriotism interestingly, builds an additional warrior, builds another warrior, increases his population, builds 1 step of the library, and interestingly doesn't finish it. Instead takes the Engineering Genius, which is of course a valuable card, but now he doesn't only take it at the cost of a civil action, but also at the cost of 1 science and 1 culture production. So a bit costly, but I think understandable, because when we take a look at the card row, we can see that a Great Wall is coming down the row, which is very unlikely to be taken away by either Gandin or me. And the Great Wall, with having the upgraded Legion tactic, could be a very strong wonder for Eepogi, but could be a bit resource intensive to build without having the Engineering Genius. So I think an understandable and also I think good choice from Eepogi here to be willing to take that cost of not finishing the library in order to take the Engineering Genius. So with the Great Wall dropping, maybe I could have taken the Engineering Genius away from Eepogi. Sadly, there will be an open borders agreement between my opponents. That's of course something that I'm not happy to see, especially Gandin has Barbarossa, so the additional military action might be quite nice for him. He will develop the Knights this turn, takes the Breton Circuses, elects Barbarossa. He has now collected all of the 3 Hippocrates tokens. He uses Barbarossa once and even twice to build 2 Knights, reveals the medieval army tactic, and with that is the strongest, builds an additional farm, which allows him to maybe go for some more Barbarossa activation soon. Now it is my turn. I am the weakest, but I was willing to see the Raiders. Of course, for the Raiders, I don't know yet whether I will be able to dodge those, but it's not the most influential strength event, and it will take a while until it will be revealed. And I just didn't want to miss out on the science. Of course, it's certainly possible that there are some strength events coming. Both of my opponents made sure to get stronger during their turns, but I know that I see the 2 events which are no strength events, and I also just... There could be some hints that there are some strength events coming, but with me having knowledge about 2 neutral events, I was willing to see the Raiders here into the deck to get the additional science, but I do get punished for it. The Foray is revealed, and that is of course that early in the game quite a big boost, and I'm the player who misses out on it. So after the open borders agreement, now the Foray, I was a bit afraid that yeah, those 2 developments might be problematic potentially. I definitely will take Columbus this turn. I think he's just extremely strong in the situation as a transitional leader with Vast in hand, with the colonization payoff later in the game. And then I could, for example, just finish the Hanging Gardens with the Engineering Genius and maybe build a warrior or something. But I can also build a warrior thanks to the development of trade routes without needing to finish the Hanging Gardens. And there are some other interesting cards that I could potentially take. So at the end I made a decision first of all to develop the Warfare, take the breakthrough, increase my population, and then build a warrior. The Warfare I need to develop first of all to make space in my hand if I want to go for exact the same turn. If I use the Engineering Genius to build a step, I would have Corruption. I don't want to elect Columbus yet. Also, it makes sure that I'm the strongest, hopefully giving me a chance to dodge potential further strength events. And yeah, the breakthrough is just a strong card to get for one civil action, so I was willing to take it here, and at the next turn maybe I can finish the Hanging Gardens and potentially also build another knight to get even stronger if I want to. And no, there's no Bach or anything in the game, no Marlene, so I think the drama is not really that important. The Rich Land, of course, could be considered, but I just value the breakthrough more here. I draw 2 cards, another colony, and also the new deposits. Having developed the warfare also gives me a bit more of a choice what I want to seed with Confucius at the next turn. Eepogi this turn finishes the library, will indeed go for the Great Wall, which I think yeah, he already prepared for or thought about the turn before with having grabbed the Engineering Genius. He builds another warrior, takes the Alchemy, which is of course nice to have for him with Leonardo. I think I couldn't really take it away at my turn. I mean, it would have been possible, but very costly. And so he sadly gets the Alchemy now. At the next turn, either he can start some big alchemy production or science production with the alchemy, or he can just finish the Great Wall, which would put him at 11 strength. For now, he is remaining at 7, is now the weakest. Sadly, the foray is already out. A bit unfortunate that that event was revealed immediately, and now I would actually be the strongest, but soon Eepogi will also get stronger again. Gandin doesn't see it, instead he develops the Britain Xerxes, builds one, finishes the Colossus and ends his turn, is now at 10 strength, the strongest, has no unhappy faces and just generally prepared himself better for the events that could be coming. Now it's my turn, I'm at least now one of the 2 strongest, and I will seed the new deposits into the deck. With Gandin having the additional colonization force, I didn't want to seed the strategic territory, as I don't want to increase the chances maybe of my opponents being prepared for the Suez Canal and the new deposits, while at the moment it's unclear which player will profit the most from it. At least I will have knowledge about it, and maybe I still get a shot at getting this copy of Iron. Actually, the first copy of Iron interestingly got discarded. No one wanted to grab that, so there will be 2 players who will be playing without Iron. I see the new deposits, and a good harvest is revealed, giving everyone a bit of additional food. Gandin gets 3 because he built a 3rd farm. I this turn will finish the Hanging Gardens. I think it's a nice timing, relatively at the end of the age, when I will actually need the happy faces. And then I will build another knight, going up to 10 strength, and I'm actually willing to copy the medieval army tactic, going up to 11 strength, making myself the strongest again. It is somewhat expensive in the sense that if I want to get another seed with Confucius, and I do want to get that, then I at the next turn have to either seed strategic or the colonization card, both of which is not ideal. But on the other hand, I'm now the strongest. Even if Eepogi finishes the Great Wall, I will remain the strongest, so I also have a shot at maybe potentially winning a strength event, or at least not being the weakest in case Gandin, which certainly could happen, goes for another warrior at his turn, and I make sure to be strongest again. After having done that, I have 2 civil actions left, and I first of all took the alchemy just to have something to upgrade in hand. It could be that the 2nd copy of Iron will be taken away, and I at the next turn might have a little bit of free resources and actions to do something about my economy, and so at the end I made the call here to go for the alchemy. I also thought about Universitas as another way to get maybe some science production going, but with being very low in resources, I preferred the cheaper option, even though I will need to invest some science into it. And also, if I have the Universitas lying around for a while longer, it could also potentially block me from an early Suez Canal or something. So at the end, I prefer to line with the alchemy, and then with my last civil action, I will just increase my population. Now it's Eepogi's turn. He doesn't go for the alchemy, instead wants to get stronger and just finishes the Great Wall and then increases his population. Now it's Gandin's turn. He uses Barbarossa to go for another warrior, increases his population, interestingly takes the Silk Road and the Masonry, is not willing to take the Iron even though it's the last copy, instead values the Silk Road, and together with the Masonry that certainly can be a strong wonder. Now it's my turn. I can seed, I also want to seed, I want to get the additional science. And at the end I made a call to seed the strategic territory into the deck. Of course there's the danger that it could be won by one of my opponents, but there's also the chance that maybe I can send an army or something away, pay a little bit for it, but then have even another colony, get some additional draws, increasing my chances to get a good H2 colony, and maybe being even better set up for the Suez Canal. And I just didn't want to send my colonization card away here, so at the end I ceded the strategic territory, but that could potentially very well backfire, and maybe Gandin with having the Colossus could at the end win it and take my Suez away. So I was not too happy about ceding it, but at least it also could have some potential for myself. The Enslave is revealed, giving me a little bit of additional science. I will this turn elect Columbus, as it's the last turn for me in H1, and I also for certain will take this copy of Iron. If I don't take it, it will also be discarded, and then all of the players would be without any increased resource production, and the coals would be heavily contested. I wouldn't know when I would have a chance to get one of those, and also you might remember that I actually put the new deposits into the deck, making it even more valuable to maybe now quickly set up some iron production. And with the new deposits coming, I also made a call to now go for the iron first. I also could have thought about going for the alchemy first here. I still need a government form, I will need some science, but there is still the knowledge of the ancients coming, and I just wanted to get some resource production going now for the new deposits. So I developed the iron, I went for an upgrade, and now I have one civil action left. I could think about just playing the stockpile, as it will be the last turn where I can potentially use it before losing it to the end of the age. The thing is, I will now be at exactly 4 food at the next turn, or I can alternatively increase my population now, so the 1 food that I would be getting from the stockpile will very likely not really matter for quite a lot of turns. And then only for the resource, I think it's not great to play it, because if I want to get resources, I could just take the rich land now. So playing the stockpile I think is not really an idea. I could just increase my population, but I think taking one of those yellows here for one civil action should be a nice deal, and the main question at the end for me was whether I want to take the rich land or the breakthrough. No. There are definitely some arguments for the rich land. It allows myself to go for even 2 more iron upgrades at the next turn instead of only 1, making it that the rich land basically not only nets me 2 additional resources, but even 3, potentially even more if the new deposit should be revealed at a time where I, thanks to the rich land, have all of my mines upgraded. So the rich land really has some potential to give me a lot of resources. And maybe I should have gone for it, maybe just being able to spend my civil actions effectively at the next turn, especially if there might be some cards that I would like to take, or if there are no cards that I would like to take, and it is nice to just be able to spend a lot of civil actions in my civilization. I think maybe I should have actually gone for the rich land, but I also still need a government form, and I was a bit afraid that maybe without a breakthrough I will be a bit short in science. At the end I went with the breakthrough here. But I think here was a situation where I maybe should have gone for the rich land, because it will just be very useful at the next turn. Not only because I get the production quicker, but also being able to maybe spend a civil action at the next turn effectively, and have more free civil actions at the future turns. If there is no early H2 card on the road the next turn that I want to grab, then it could be worthwhile having already both upgrades done in 2 or 3 turns. So I think here maybe I should have gone with Richland, but of course getting a breakthrough for one civil action is not bad, and the science also will be quite useful for me. Then I draw the Rebellion. With having the Hanging Gardens, that's an interesting event for me to push. Eepogi seeds, the rats are revealed. Eepogi did increase his population during his last turn. I could have seen it as a hint that there might be rats coming, because I could have also taken a card from the row instead. So maybe just increasing my population could have also been an option. So now I sadly will lose 4 food, which is basically 1 population. Eepogi will now go for the alchemy, goes for a lot of additional science production, builds another warrior, is now at 13 strength. However, building that warrior makes it that at the next turn he will have an uprising issue, and the thing that he might be hoping towards fixing it is, there are actually no copies of Bread and Circuses or Theology left. So an interesting choice here by him, being willing to invest into the additional warrior, and let's see how he plans to solve his uprising at the next turn. Now it's Gandin's turn. He will draw some additional cards from the Colossus, but seeds an H1 event for now. The knowledge of the ancients is revealed, which sadly at the end gives my opponents a bit more value than me. Gandin builds the first step of the Silk Road, placed reserves 1 for 3 food, and that's now exactly enough food to go for another Barbarossa activation, going for another warrior, just making him the strongest. And he also goes for the Code of Laws, which is a bit of a science investment, because if he also wants to go for the Masonry, he will be quite low in science. He still maybe wants to go for some upgrades at some point, but if he, for example, does a revolution into monarchy, then maybe he can still be fine, and it could work out quite well. Now it is my turn. I made a decision to use Columbus immediately. Also, one of the reasons being that I can actually use one civil action to increase my population, because not only with not taking the rich land can I now only go for one iron upgrade, but if I would not go for Columbus, with having lost food to the Reds, I could not even increase my population, forcing me to spend a lot of civil actions to take some cards. Here we can maybe see the downside of not having taken the rich land. I think being able to spend another civil action to go for the mine upgrade could be quite strong here, because now I have to do some not really that efficient stuff. For example, I can now increase my population, but that's it, what I can do in my civilization. I can commit to the alchemy, but committing to it when there's a scientific method coming down the road feels a little bit bad. I even thought about grabbing the scientific method for 3 civil actions, but at the end I felt it's a bit too expensive, and Eepogi has already the alchemy. Gandin doesn't have enough science to invest into it immediately, and maybe could have some troubles taking it, but it could be that he will take it away, so there's an idea of just taking it for 3 here. But I can't go for 2 upgrades immediately the next turn unless the new deposits are revealed. But I was not willing to grab it for 3. Instead, I increased my population and then actually grabbed the irrigation for 2 civil actions, which I was also not too happy about. But when we take a look at my opponent's situation, both of them have no additional farm up or haven't done any farm upgrades yet, meaning if I don't go for the irrigation, the selective breedings might be quite heavily contested. I have some additional yellow tokens from the vast territory, some additional happy faces from the hanging gardens, so maybe the irrigation can be fine as a long-term solution, and so I at the end rather wanted to take that one and increased my population. I have now a bit of freedom to some free civil actions at my next turn. I don't need as many to get out of corruption, which could have been a problem if I would have grabbed the scientific method for 3. And so that was my choice at the end, but I was not too happy about it. Maybe just going for another upgrade with the rich land, and then maybe grabbing frugality or something could have been interesting if I would have taken the rich land. I'm now the weakest again, so I could get hit by some strength events. I draw a war, the popularization of science. Eepogi seeds, and I get hit by an event that is quite annoying for me. The Dark Ages, of course. Eepogi loses even more science than I do, but the thing is he has actually some strong science production, while I have just saved up a lot of science thanks to having Confucius and some events having been revealed that gave additional science. So I think even though Eepogi lost 1 more science, it might still hurt me the most, as I still need a government form. Eepogi as well, but he will now go for the monarchy. And definitely a painful event for me, and the main benefit of it is probably Gandin, who made sure to be low in science. Probably he was the one seeded it, and that also explains very well why he was willing to invest into the Code of Laws. Now Eepogi will go for the monarchy, and he goes for an upgrade to the alchemy. He still has to find a solution for his uprising, and he will do it with actually destroying a mine. Certainly quite expensive, but maybe he has the hope to get into coal soon and then still be at a fine resource production, and at least he also will get some additional resource from Leonardo, but still a heavy price to pay to make sure to not be the weakest, maybe indicating that he has pushed some strength events, or just out of fear that maybe Gandin has pushed some. He will also take the efficient upgrade and is now very nicely prepared to go for some upgrades to either selective breeding or coal. Gandin goes for another bread and circuses, takes the selective breeding and takes the reserves. Interestingly, doesn't go for the coal, which I was not too happy to see. I think it's understandable that he doesn't go for it, because he has not enough science to go for it at the next turn. I think it's the better call from him to go for the scientific method first. But with not taking it at all, it means that Eepogi can go for it at his next turn. So I, as the third person, would have liked it that Gandin takes it, and at least he would have had it in hand for certain. But I think the reserves, especially with the Silk Road, will just allow him to go for some upgrades more quickly. So I think an understandable choice by him. Now it is my turn. As you can see, I actually pushed the Rebellion into the deck. Of course, I'm the weakest, and I think I will actually get stronger this turn, so maybe I shouldn't have seeded, but on the other hand, I thought Eepogi at this point is really vulnerable to a potential Rebellion, and he might now want to go for coal first, so he might have some nice stuff to do, which will delay his which will make it that it takes maybe a bit longer until he fixes his happy faces. So I thought if I now push the Rebellion and the event deck moves quickly forward, there's maybe a chance that it will hit Eepogi, and so I didn't want to wait with seeding here. The event revealed other raiders that what was pushed by me, at least Eepogi gets hit by it as well, and it's actually quite annoying for him. He's on very low resource production, he has no food saved up, losing 2 resources here is certainly a bit annoying for him. At this turn I do a bit of a questionable choice. I will first of all take the revolutionary idea, and I will at the end take it instead of the Rifleman. And the Rifleman, of course, being a potentially very important military technology for me to have. Also an important technology to maybe take away from Eepogi, as it allows him to very easily just get more strength with upgrading warriors to Rifleman. And also Gandin will at some point still need the Rifleman, so not taking it now means that I might miss out on it at some point. On the other hand, of course, I still need a government form, and that 4 additional signs from the revolutionary idea could just end up being extremely useful. Nonetheless, it feels to me that maybe I should have played it a bit safer here and taken the Rifleman, and with the last 2 civil actions I will actually develop the alchemy and go for an upgrade. And yeah, at the next turn, if I play the revolutionary, I have enough science to go for a government form, but while I have enough science, I might not have enough civil actions, because if the government form is in 3 civil actions, I don't have enough civil actions to play revolutionary idea, take the government form, and then I have no civil action left to develop it. I could have also built another army this turn, which would have made me actually the strongest instead of being the weakest. I have knowledge about at least one event that is no strength event, and at the end I at this point preferred to instead get my production going. Maybe I could have also just built another army, but then again it would have been a bit annoying to spend my civil actions effectively. So at the end I made a decision to go for the alchemy. The first copy of scientific method has been taken away, and some additional science production could be quite useful. Of course, with the new deposits coming, maybe you could argue I should rather go for mine upgrade first, but it could also, you can also think about it in the way that I will soon get more resources. At the moment I'm somewhat limited in spending the resources with being low in civil actions, and so even though not going for the mine upgrade and instead going for the lab upgrade might even cost me 2 instead of only 1 resource. The 1 science might even still be more valuable than the 2 resources, and I might have enough resources to do all of the stuff that I need, even if the new deposits are now revealed, and I will need a lot of science, especially after now having gotten hit by the Dark Ages. Yeah, so I think it's a fine decision to maybe prioritize now getting some economy going, but I maybe could have, instead of taking the revolutionary idea, could have taken the Rifleman, but on the other hand, the science of course will be very valuable, so it's understandable, but I think maybe doing the safer call and also denying the first copy of Rifleman from Eepogi might have been the better decision. I draw some cards, and I was actually quite happy to draw them. Actually, I do not only have knowledge about, I have actually knowledge about 2 of the 3 events, so that's is important to note why I was willing to not build any units here. And I was actually quite happy because one of the events coming is the Strategic Territory 1, and with those 3 cards drawn I might now be very well prepared for Suez, because my chances to win the Strategic Territory are dramatically increased, and I actually have already a strong colony in hand for the Suez Canal, so that really gave me some hope, and I was really hoping that the Suez Canal will be revealed at a time when I can just take it, and then I might get a big economical boost thanks to it. Eepogi seeds, and there is indeed a strategic territory revealed immediately. I actually don't remember if I maybe was even willing to send an army. I think probably not, as I would leave myself vulnerable to an aggression, so I think I was willing to bid a knight and all of my cards, which is 7, and that I was able to win it for, but at the end I didn't send a knight and all of my cards away, because then again I would be vulnerable to an aggression from Gandin, unless of course I draw a defense card, but 2 would already be gone, and so I instead send a medieval army away with only one card, making sure that I can defend myself with having the cards left in hand, and yeah, which I think is the right call, and I think it's still the right call to bid that much for it, because I remain now the only player with any colonies, making it quite expensive for my opponents to go for a Suez denial, and making the Suez even stronger for myself in case I should get it. Of course, I was also interested in my draws, and I get some events. Iconoclasm maybe could be interesting, potentially arms industry, but nothing major, no tactic or something that I can use. Eepogi goes for the coal here, develops it, goes for an upgrade with the efficient upgrade, and then with the remaining civil actions takes the rifleman and the strategy. Now it's Gandin's turn. He will offer the scientific cooperation to Eepogi, something that I was not too happy to see. It allows him to go for the masonry and the scientific method, and with that he can develop 2 techs immediately, and he actually can save some resources when he goes for the scientific method upgrades, so it will provide him some value. But then Eepogi has also quite a bunch of science, has Leonardo, so it's quite early in the game, so I was really not happy to see this pact being accepted between my opponents. The only good news is that it at least replaced the Open Borders Agreement pact that both of those opponents had running, so at least now the military actions is gone, which is definitely a bit hurtful for Gandin. But now with the scientific cooperation, as said, he can develop the masonry, he can go for the scientific method, he is willing to play the resources with the Silk Road bonus, and it allows him to actually go for not only 1 but even 2 scientific method upgrades, really boosting his science production. Now it is my turn. You can again see that I'm willing to push the deck here, and I make an interesting, potentially controversial choice with putting the Iconoclasm into the deck. There are still some H1 events in front of it, so it's of course a bit risky, but popularization of science isn't looking that great at the moment. Vast territory I want to keep for Suez, arms industry, with Eepogi maybe soon going for Rifleman. Could be a fine event to push, but I have some iron production while my opponents are just about to build some resource production, or Gandin is still operating on bronze mines. And I kind of wanted to push, because when we take a look at Eepogi's situation, he still has 2 unhappy workers. This copy of Organized Religion will get discarded. He probably still wants to continue upgrading his mine, so if the event deck is now pushed quickly, there is a chance that he might get hit quite harsh by the rebellion. And at the end, at least, I know relatively exactly when the Iconoclasm will be revealed. I know that it will be coming. Maybe it will be revealed quickly enough that just nothing happens, and then it's basically a neutral event. Maybe even Eepogi or Gandin will lose their H1 leaders, costing them a civil action, maybe a little bit of value that they still gained. But depending on maybe what leaders they take, I at least know that the Iconoclasm is coming. Maybe with pushing or not pushing, I can influence a little bit the timing of that event, and then hopefully make it that it will at the end be at my favor. I have the knowledge about it, and I wanted to push the deck, so at the end I was willing to push it. The event revealed are the Crusades, so a strength event, which sadly makes it that I'm a bit more behind in culture. Now actually not, Gandin didn't produce a lot of culture up to this point. He is still behind me, so generally not a lot of culture produced in this game yet. I don't get punished for not taking the Rifleman at the turn before. I still get a shot now at taking them for 2, and with it being the last copy, I now really made sure to get those going. Again, I could build another army to get stronger, but I have enough defense cards in hand to defend myself. I know that the event that is coming is no strength event, and it's actually not only no strength event, it's the new deposits, making it that I can still upgrade this mine before it will be revealed. And so I, instead of building some units and then not being able to go for any of those upgrades and having to take some cards, play Revolutionary Idea or something, I instead just went for those 2 upgrades, getting my economy going, and being prepared to go for a government form at the next turn. I keep the 2 colonization cards and the vast territory. I draw some tactics now, so I have now the Rifleman, but now maybe getting cannons could be interesting as well. Eepogi seeds, the new deposits are revealed. I at the end gain the most resources out of it, at least for Eepogi. Or he actually has only 2 mines, so he can't easily build a 3rd one. So yeah, but he goes for an upgrade, and at the next turn he, thanks to the new deposits, might be able to build a railroad. At the moment he's of course missing one resource, but he has Leonardo and he can, for example, develop strategy at the next turn and then finish the railroad. Now it's Gandin's turn, he cedes, and the rebellion is revealed immediately. I was happy to see that worked out well for me. Losing 4 civil actions at this point, certainly quite a setback for Eepogi. Now he can't finish the railroad, and losing that many civil actions definitely a setback, and I got somewhat rewarded for pushing a bit aggressively in order for the rebellion to be revealed quickly. Gandin this turn finishes the Silk Road, goes for another Barbarossa activation, goes up to 19 strength, making himself quite a bit threatening, and then interestingly he goes for the monarchy. It's a late monarchy, but he can develop it this turn instead of either waiting for a government form or grabbing one for expensive. So understandable, but still a little bit late, and maybe he could have been also a bit patient, but of course now being on monarchy makes it also a bit smoother to maybe go for an H3 government form at some point. So understandable, and he gets some value out of it immediately. Also, he then takes the navigation and the efficient upgrade, and of course, if he wants to invest into navigation as well, then waiting for an H2 government form, maybe would make it that he can't go for both the government form and the navigation already at the next turn. It's my turn. I can't really push because I want to keep the vast territory for the Suez Canal. There's no Suez Canal on the row yet, but there's a government form and I will go for the Republic here. I could have also gone for the Conmon, but I have the warfare, and I think having a lot of civil actions might be quite valuable for me, especially if I get the Suez Canal and have then a booming economy going. Of course, maybe I also could... the military actions, of course, could also be valuable at some point, but for now I might be somewhat fine with 3 and maybe have a shot at getting military theory or something at some point. So I go for the Republic, I develop it. I will now go for some more units, build a knight, actually develop the rifleman. I have to be a bit careful to not be in danger of getting hit by an aggression. And if I just build a warrior, then I also have corruption. So I use the chance now to develop the rifleman, and with building 1 and upgrading to 1 I get out of corruption. I'm at 17 strength, I'm not the weakest any longer. And as you can see with my last 2 civil actions, I will then go for Maria Theresa. I think the alternative cards in the row are not too great. A frugality would have been very interesting, allowing myself to increase my population 2 times the next turn. Maybe I could have, instead of electing Maria Theresa, I could have taken the frugality and then elected her the next turn. But I wanted to stay a bit flexible and spend my civil actions effectively, as I might want to spend a lot of those to get the Suez Canal going, and at least it will also make it that already the next turn I will have some additional resources from Maria available to build some additional military units. Of course, going for Maria is a bit tricky in the sense that the Iconoclasm is coming, but it might be coming very soon and it might still be revealed in H2. And if it is revealed in H3, then hopefully my opponents will also lose their leader. And so I didn't want to play now without a leader and then maybe the Iconoclasm being revealed in H2 anyway. So I just committed to Maria. Either the Iconoclasm turns out to be not hurtful for me, or I will lose Maria, but maybe there's the hope that my opponents will lose a valuable leader for them as well. I actually keep the Hussars tactic here, discard the fortifications. I have already some knights, I have now committed to rifleman. I don't know if I get the cannons, and so I made a decision to rather stay with the Hussars. Eepogi cedes, and the event revealed is the scientific breakthrough, giving everyone a bit of science. I sadly got the least science out of it, and I was also not happy to see it, because both of my opponents have the scientific cooperation, and with more science they will now be able to develop even more technologies for cheaper. Eepogi will also this turn go for the strategy, goes for the rifleman, develops 2 techs, goes for some upgrades, making him the strongest, still drawing 3 cards, getting out of corruption, and then at the next turn, when he has his full civil actions again, he can finish the railroad. Gandin doesn't see it, instead he goes for the selective breeding, goes for the cannons, which is interesting, a big indicator that he has a tactic available, and I think the only tactic that he can easily transition into, or also maybe not even that easily, but I really think he might have the mobile artillery here, or maybe the Napoleonic army that he plans to go for undated, but with that big payment I think it's likely that he has something like mobile artillery in hand. Also he develops the navigation then, which not only helps him for potential colonies that could be coming, but also makes him the strongest, and he uses the scientific cooperation pact. Now it is my turn. I again can't push. meaning that maybe it could get a bit close with the Iconoclasm still being revealed in H2, but we will see. It's certainly possible if my opponents will see it, but I can't see it this turn. I was a bit unhappy that the Suez Canal turns out to be very late. It would have been quite strong if I would have been able to take it right now and then maybe finish it at the next turn, get a nice boost, get a vast territory for Maria Theresa. Now it might be a bit late, and also there's still a chance that maybe my opponents could take it away. Gandin really made sure to get a navigation going, so there could be a colony revealed soon. I will increase my population, getting a bit of value from Maria Theresa. I will take the breakthrough. Getting that card for civil action I think is almost a must here. And then the question is, how do I want to prepare for my next turn? And I thought, now that I can't take the Suez, maybe I should still set myself up in a way that I can actually finish it already the next turn, because we are getting later in the game, and it just gets more and more important to finish those economy upgrades as quickly as possible. And when I go for the architecture here, and if I also develop it, I not necessarily need to develop it, but with developing it I might have a bit more freedom at the next turn. Then I would actually be able to just take and finish the Suez Canal, even if it's in the 3 civil action area. And so that was basically the plan for this turn, just setting up in a way that I can go for the Suez Canal at the next turn. I will also develop the irrigation, because while I could still hope to get a selective breeding, it's not there now. If there's a chance that the age will end before my next turn, and if I don't take the selective breeding, Eepogi takes it away. I could just be playing without food upgrades, and I will get, hopefully, the Suez Canal with the vast territory, and then the irrigation could be a fine solution. And I have already a nice yellow bank, so even if I don't get it, hopefully it will be a nice solution, so I get just some food production going. I could go for a second upgrade. The problem being that then I don't have enough resources for the Suez Canal, and I thought here it could be just quite important that I leave myself with enough resource to finish the Suez at the next turn. I also want to use the resource of Maria. If I build a rifleman, again I can't finish the Suez with already having gone for the irrigation upgrade, so I build another knight, which is at least nice in the sense that I might be able to go for hussars at some point. And then with the remaining 2 civil actions, I take the frugality, and I already developed the architecture. I could have also taken the organized religion. As said, even with only having the architecture in hand, I could take the Suez Canal from the 3 civil action area, develop the architecture, and then increase my population. The thing is, now that I have it already developed, I can take the Suez Canal from the 3 civil action area, finish it, and I have 1 civil action left, and that 1 civil action that I have left I can spend to increase my population, and then I have a free population that I can use to make use out of the additional resources from Maria Theresa. So here I thought it could just be quite strong to make this commitment, even though I'm now quite low in science, which could be a bit problematic, but I was hoping that I'm not in big danger in a military sense, and now that I will hopefully need it soon anyway for the Suez Canal, that it will just make my turns a bit more effective with already having developed it. I draw 2 cards, the Civil Unrest and the Historic Territory. Eepogi seeds, and a wealthy territory is revealed. I was not too happy to see it, because I can't really bid that much for it. Gandin is able to win it, even for quite cheap. At least he loses some colonization cards, but now he has a colony and he has some additional resources, meaning if the Suez Canal is revealed for him, especially with having the masonry, he could now very well take it away if he has a solid colony in hand. And I really felt like getting the Suez Canal could boost my position in a way that I might have an advantage in H3. But for now the Suez Canal is not in the row, so for now we don't know if Gandin at his turn will have a chance to take it away. Eepogi at his turn will go for the architecture, develops it with the scientific corporation, goes for the organized religion, develops that with the scientific corporation. He actually won't build an organized religion now, instead he develops it to just get a resource from Leonardo before he now switches to Catherine, and then he won't build an organized religion. Instead he just finishes the railroad to get his big resource boost going, also putting him at 25 strength, making it that maybe already at the next turn he can make use out of Catherine's ability. Now it's Gandin's turn, and as you can see there's no Suez Canal in the row, which is on one hand good for me, because it means that it can't be taken away by Gandin, but it also means that there is maybe a chance that it won't be revealed on my turn, and also it will probably be only available for expensive. Gandin is actually willing to take James Watt for quite expensive here. He takes him for 3, develops, elects him, goes for the coal, plays the patriotism with the Silk Road bonus, and then disbands 2 warriors actually, reveals the mobile artillery tactic, and makes a very nice transition. The wealthy territory helped him quite a bit here, uses all of his military actions now in H2, making it that he will get a lot of H3 draws going. He also will get the Colossus draws, of course, and he has now already James Watt elected, making it that at the next turn he can just fully concentrate on getting some coal upgrades, and if he gets lucky and there's an early oil, he could even go for oil upgrades, and he doesn't need to spend the civil actions to take and elect James Watt at the next turn, while getting him for 3 civil actions is somewhat expensive. At the next turn he would have lost his leader, and then he would have needed to elect N to take and elect him, so it's basically only 1 civil action more costly than at the next turn. I also don't know if maybe there would have been the danger of him being discarded by me. Maybe he could have also just gone for a different leader. I mean, Napoleon, being at 32 strength now with the Colossus draw, certainly would be quite threatening, so maybe that could be an idea. But of course, with having selective breeding and coal in hand and it being quite low, getting those upgrades done quickly could turn out to be extremely strong for him. So despite Napoleon maybe being somewhat interesting, Gandin doing here the choice of going for the more economical road and going for James Watt. As you can see, it takes 2 cards in a row, meaning at my turn there's 1 single card left, and that made it that I have to do quite a tough choice at my turn. First of all, I can already say, and I will say it because revealing it, if I reveal it, you will already see my choice for seeding. The Suez Canal will be in the row. I can take and finish it this turn. And now the big question is, do I want to push here or not? I know that one of those 2 events is the Iconoclasm, and I have now the chance to maybe keep Maria Theresa, and I think she has quite some strong potential here. And I could just not push, I could push, and if the Iconoclasm is out, I could keep Maria Theresa. But the Iconoclasm could also do some really big damage to Gandin here, because if I do not push, and then if Eepogi or Gandin ideally push, and the Iconoclasm is revealed before Gandin has his actions, then he will lose tons of value that he could have generated with James Watt. So I thought that could just be extremely painful for him. Eepogi maybe has the leader that generates him the least value. Of course, he at some point can once do the Catherine expansion thing, but the military action is not that relevant at the moment. The coup to culture is not as strong, so he probably would profit the most from the Iconoclasm being revealed in H3. Garnon gets a lot out of James Watt, but I still also thought I will get quite a lot out of Maria Theresa for my own. I have the frugality in hand, I will get now the Suez Canal with the vast territory too. I will be able to increase my population quite a bunch of times. The additional science that I will generate should turn out to be quite useful. I will hope with now Garnon being at 28 strength, I might have the chance to get 3 resources out of her for some more turns. And at the end, I did actually do the call to seed here, but not necessarily because I thought that me keeping Maria is stronger than Gandin keeping James Watt, but I was afraid of the following scenario, and that is that I now push, I do not push, Eepogi maybe just uses Catherine as I won't get stronger, and then Gandin maybe also doesn't push, or maybe he pushes and the Iconoclasm is not on top. And if Gandin at the next turn just goes for 3 coal upgrades, which he can do with the James Watt discount and with the help of the efficient upgrade, then he has already gotten a lot out of the value out of James Watt, and then the Iconoclasm might just be revealed after his turn, and I then would lose Maria Theresa, who over the course of H3 could still generate me a lot of value, while Gandin has already gotten quite a lot of value out of James Watt. And that scenario was the one that I was the most afraid about, and with that I made the call to push. Either the Iconoclasm is now revealed, which at least means I can keep Maria for quite some turns and hopefully still get quite a lot of value out of it. It would not be my preferred scenario. My preferred scenario would be the Iconoclasm staying in the deck, but with then only being 1 card remaining, I was hoping that the chances that either Eepogi or Gandin seed should be quite high, with them being strong, Gandin getting the Colossus draws, and that then there's a good chance, if the Iconoclasm stays in the deck, that Gandin's James Watt will be removed before he can get any value out of him. And that I think would be my preferred scenario, but I was afraid that there might be a short chance that if I don't see it, that Gandin just gets a lot of value out of James Watt, and then the Iconoclasm is revealed afterwards, and that was the scenario that I was afraid of the most. And so at the end I made the decision to push. Civil Unrest hopefully will be a fine event for me in the deck. It gives me more knowledge, it gives me 2 cultures, so also generally some value in pushing here, and so I seeded a Civil Unrest. And as you can see, the Iconoclasm is revealed now, quite influential. It might have quite an impact on the game, whether positive or negative, we will have to see, but that's definitely a crucial moment in the game, the Iconoclasm being revealed now with 1 card remaining in H2, or maybe revealed later on and instantly removing all of the leaders. And then this turn was relatively clear for me. I don't want to risk not getting the Suez. I want to finish it immediately to just get the 3 additional resource production immediately. So I finish it. I certainly will take the vast territory, especially with having Maria. And then with having developed the architecture the turn before already, I can increase my population and I have enough resource to go for another knight. And I can also reveal the Hussars tactic using some military actions now while still being in H2 and also making sure to defend against Gandin. So, yeah, definitely quite a tough choice about seeding here, and now the Iconoclasm is out, meaning Gandin sadly will get a lot of value out of James Watt, but I at least also can keep Maria for some more turns. Now it's Eepogi's turn. I will draw the spy. Eepogi could now use Catherine, but as you can see, he is actually willing to push, and I think the event that is coming is revealed by him. When you see it revealed, you might also understand why Eepogi wanted to push, because that event is actually the Cold War. Which I was not happy to see. Again, more science fueled into the Scientific Cooperation Pact, and I was worrying that that might just be a lot of value that my opponents are generating here, that it's tough competing against. At least I have now the Suez Canal, I have Maria, so I have a strong setup myself. I was not pessimistic about how the game is going, but also I thought it could be a challenge. Eepogi is now a bit of a culture lead, has some nice stuff going, so I was a bit worried, but also thought that my position has quite some potential. Now, Eepogi during his turn has to fix his happy faces, builds an organized religion, takes the selective breeding, makes sure to not have any famine, even builds an additional farm, which is interesting because it maybe takes a little while until he gets the next population out, but maybe also doesn't need a population in the near future, and then he takes the wave of nationalism with his last civil action. Now it's Gandin's turn. He doesn't see it, instead he develops the coal. He will go for 1 upgrade, another upgrade, another upgrade. Definitely hurts, would have been quite strong I think if James Watt would have been removed before this turn. The timing for that would have needed to be perfect. And then Gandin takes the cavalryman in the breakthrough. Now it's my turn. I don't want to push the historic territory necessarily, and with being the weakest still, and so instead I skip the politics phase, and there's a very early copy of computers revealed. I have the architecture, so I can build them with a bit of a discount, and I think at this early in the game, getting computers just it's pretty strong. There's not the most synergy, but some synergy with Einstein, Marie Curie, also spaceflight, but also just for the pure economical value at this point of the game, I think the computers are still quite strong, so I developed them. I go for 2 upgrades. I increase my population, not using the frugality to be able to get out of corruption without necessarily needing to increase my population another time. I will build a knight. I could just increase my population another time, but instead I made the decision to take the urban growth. I certainly will build more urban buildings at some point, and getting 3 resources for 1 civil action is just a pretty good deal. The reserves are normally quite heavily contested, and of course it has something to do with their flexibility and also with being able to use them for the military, but nonetheless, even if you take a reserves for 1 and a blade for resources, it only gives 2 resources per civil action, and this urban growth will give me 3 resources per civil action, and so I was willing to take that one. It's a bit greedy because I also could have taken the team sports, and there's of course an event named Revolutions of Time which could hurt me because I have any happy face solution in hand at the moment. but thanks to my good yellow bank, even if the Ravages of Time should be revealed, it would not be a disastrous situation for me, and I could hope to at some point get the professional sports going, or maybe Chaplain or something. So with that, I was willing to not take the team sports and rather wanted to have the urban growth in hand, but also just increasing my population could have been a perfectly fine call here to maybe have more civil actions at the next turn when there will be some interesting H3 cards available. Now at the end of my turn, we can also take a quick look at the overview. First of all, I will get some draws. A military alliance could be interesting, an interesting pack to have relatively early. The modern army could have some potential, but by this point I already am quite heavily committed into knights, and I was hoping to get tanks to maybe get more value out of the hussars tactic. When we take a look at the overview, we can see that I think I have a fine position. Actually, all of the players have very strong resource production. Eepogi has the railroad, I have the Suez Canal, Gandin just got James Watt with coal going. Also, all players have some very strong science production. Eepogi and Gandin sadly already got a lot of value out of the Scientific Cooperation Pact, so resources and science quite strong for all players. Now I actually have the strongest science production, but I don't have the pact. And then population-wise, I think I'm looking fine. I have a very strong yellow bank. I can go for another farm upgrade soon. I have a chance maybe to get into mechanized agriculture. Gandin still needs to fix his food production. Eepogi just went for some upgrades, so I think there I have a bit of an edge. Civil action-wise, I have a bit of an edge. I don't have the most military actions. Maybe will miss out on a bit of draws if I want to use Maria again. Maria also basically increasing my culture, science, and resource production, which is not represented on this overview here. So overall, I thought I have a fine position, but Eepogi, of course, has Catherine, has a bit of a culture lead, and overall it's relatively close, so I think every player has chances to win here still. But I thought my position has some potential, and if I play the H3 well, maybe I could have a chance of winning this game. Eepogi seeds, I'm the weakest at the moment, but luckily there's no strength event revealed, instead a civil unrest, which at the end it doesn't hit anyone. Eepogi interestingly being willing to disband a warrior, but it allows him to use the wave for 6 resources, allowing him to actually go for 2 upgrades, still getting 3 draws in at the moment, being at 27 strength, and with the free population, he will first of all actually go for the Republic, interestingly. With the Scientific Cooperation, it's relatively cheap, and I mean, it will give him a big civil action boost. He's now at 8 civil actions. It might be an interesting call here. Instead of waiting for an H3 government form, going for the Republic, he then builds an additional lab, he goes for a farm upgrade. So an interesting turn with the warrior deleting in order to play the wave, then putting the warrior basically into alchemy, going for Republic while having an H1 government form. So some interesting calls here by Eepogi, but overall I think it leaves him with a strong position. So maybe just a creative solution to improve his position here. Now it's Gandin's turn. I was not too happy to see that an early mechanized agriculture is coming down the road that he can use with James Watt, maybe getting now even more value out of him than compared to when he would have gone for the selective breeding, and also the mechanized agriculture would have been a card that I maybe also would have liked to see. Gandin seeds, the Ravages of Time are revealed, and I was not too happy to see it. Gandin will now just lose the Colossus, Eepogi the Library. I think both wonders are fine to lose for them, while I will now lose the Hanging Gardens, and sadly I didn't take the team sports, so now I need to hope that I will have a chance at getting the professional sports at some point. Gandin will indeed go for the mechanized agriculture, he develops it for 1 and then gets 4 science with the breakthrough, with the Silk Road bonus, so that's somewhat crazy, basically increasing his science score by 3 with developing that technology. He will then go for 2 upgrades, will get a lot of food, and then also takes the reserves instead of going for another upgrade. Maybe just disbanding the farm could also be fine, instead of just having maybe as much food production that it will just cause some corruption issues for him, especially with the Red Cross being gone. Yeah, so I was not too happy to see this, that the mechanized agriculture was there. It's now my turn. I am the weakest. I don't necessarily want to push the historic territory, but instead I can offer the military alliance. And the main factor on deciding which player I want to offer it to was here that I wanted to get a strength against a player where I maybe can at some point go for some aggressions or wars. Because I get a tanks this turn, I get the military theory this turn. And while I don't have any wars or any in hand right now, I have some potential to go for a bit of strength. And it's a tough call. At the end, I made a decision to offer the pack to Eepogi. It was a really close call, but with him having more strength, I will get stronger than him this turn. I will get the strongest. Maybe he will just use Catherine immediately anyway, but if I offer the pack to Gandin, Gandin gets stronger, and then Eepogi can't steal a yellow token from Gandin. I mean, it's the question if that would be beneficial for me. But yeah, and also I felt like, well, Gandin has some very strong production. If he maybe misses out in the air forces, just being in mobility, and now the first copy of tanks being gone could still put him in a bit of trouble to defend himself, while Eepogi has the Great Wall. If he just gets a copy of rockets, he, with the military build up, even if he has no tactic, will always be able to threaten a lot of strength. But of course he doesn't have the rockets yet, so it's certainly also a consideration to say there might be some hope of him not getting the military techs that he needs. At the end, my gut feeling told me that maybe also with only being in 3 military actions, maybe the chances that I can do some aggressive stuff against Gandin are higher. Also at this point, I didn't know how the other game that you saw at the video before finished yet, and if I would have managed to win this game, then maybe a second place and also especially finishing before Gandin could have been very important. So yeah, but it was a very close call, and offering it to either player I think would have been a fine call. At the end I offered to Eepogi. And then I said I will go for the tanks this turn. I want to start using the resource of Maria Theresa to go for some upgrades here. I will increase my population to not have an uprising issue. I will increase my population again, getting some nice value out of Maria Theresa. And then I will take the urban growth and the military theory. I think I will also need this urban growth. I'm really hoping towards getting the professional sports at some point. And the military theory I will just need. It already hurts quite again that I miss out on a draw this turn, but I wanted to use the resource from Maria. But from next turn on I can go for some more military units while getting 3 draws, hopefully giving me some aggressive cards at some point, or maybe some nice impacts, and I can then just maybe put some pressure on my opponents. I draw another colonization card, another tactic, which could potentially be interesting. Eepogi Seeds, the national pride is revealed, which sadly gives him even more culture, and Eepogi is willing to go for a bit of a greedy line here, builds this multimedia, which of course gives him quite a boost. He runs even more away with the culture and has now also even more science production, takes the Air Force into reserves. He doesn't take the rockets, and I do think that's a greedy call here that could get punished, but at the moment he is willing to do that call and is willing to miss out on the first copy of rockets to get this multimedia going. Make sure to get the Air Forces though, but if he misses out on the second copy of rockets, maybe also the last copy of tanks, he might actually be quite vulnerable, so let's see how that will work out for him. It's Gandin's turn. Sadly, he will get a chance to get the democracy. He has so many science saved up. He still is the pact, so it's just he still has more than enough science left afterwards. So I was not too happy to see this democracy dropping down for him. He will then go now for the 3rd farm upgrade. Goes for Chaplain, elects him interestingly. Maybe he's saying that he has gotten enough value out of James Watt. Interesting that he was willing to reach out that far to get Chaplain, but he gets him together with movies. He will have lots of food and resource production, so he just guarantees with that line that he soon can go for a lot of culture production. Now it is my turn. I again don't want to push the historic territory. I want to maybe go for some military, and then I could just gift some culture away to one of my opponents if it is revealed at a bad time. I this turn and again increase my population with Maria Theresa, but then I make the decision to commit now to a different leader. This turn I will get 3 resources out of Maria one more time, but I will go for a relatively significant strength increase. So from next turn on I thought I might only get 1 resource out of Maria, and so instead I thought it could be nice to get the additional culture from Marie Curie. I will basically exchange the additional science maybe from Maria with Marie's additional science, and also the 3 additional strength could certainly be relevant if I get maybe some interesting cards. So I make the switch here, get some additional culture production going with electing Marie Curie. I also will take the professional sports for 2 civil actions. I won't build one yet. The civil unrest is out. There could only be the immigration and of course the prosperity, but instead I rather wanted to use my civil actions to develop the military theory, to maximize my draws, and then take the patriotism to have another military action in hand, which could be very valuable in case I get a war. So yeah, I can then go for the professional spots at the next turn. I can build them very cheaply with the urban growths. I have the patriotism in hand. I'm now at 46 strength. I can go for more hussars tactics. I have a lot of resources. And so I thought that I could actually have enough strength potential to maybe pull off a war. Problem being that we are now already the middle of age 3. I might have this draw and one more draw in order to get my war. So it's certainly not possible that I will be able to go do something with it. But also the pressure alone might already be enough to justify me doing that, because there's no multimedia, no movies available as an option for me. I can't really increase my cultural production apart from going from Recre, which I did. So I could have maybe thought about Mandela plus pro sports and then just building a lot of professional sports. Could be an interesting idea, but I'm not sure how much I consider that, but I think I can't easily go already this turn for a lot of, for maybe 2 pro sports. And I felt like if I get a war that could just be quite strong now, having the 3 additional strength from Marie Curie, and also I will at least get 3 culture production out of her. I will get my next draw. I was of course very excited to see what I will draw. Sadly no war yet, but impact of strength and an aggression. Maybe those cards could also be valuable potentially. Eepogi seeds and event revealed sadly is demigration, so having gone for bro sports maybe could have prevented me from losing a population. I don't have the most population, so I mean I have a fine amount, but I have not the most food production, so it's still a bit painful. Eepogi will now actually go for Mandela. He will then go for the fundamentalism, starting now to increase his strength. He knows that he again has only infantry units, so he is at the risk of missing out on rockets or tanks, and then he just needs every bit of strength that he can get from other sources to not be too vulnerable at the end. Gandin seeds, so the event deck will now flip. The developed territory is revealed. I wasn't willing to bid too much, as I didn't want to lose too much tempo or too much military pressure. But I was willing to bid a little bit, and actually both of my opponents just pass on it, and at the end I just get it for knight. I could have also sent a rifleman away. Maybe that was a mistake, but maybe it could also turn out to be fine. And the knight is of course the cheaper unit. Kanan will go for developing the cavalryman, develops the movies, using again the scientific cooperation pact. He will increase his population a bunch of times, place the reserves with the Silk Road bonus, builds the movie, builds a cannon, builds another cannon that he is now willing to commit that heavily into cannons, and going for that one upgrade to cavalryman I think is really showcasing that he has the mechanized army in hand. I drew the other copy, but there are 2 copies, so it really looks like he has them in hand, unless he is just going for a big bluff move, which is of course possible. But the thing is, even if he has the mechanized army, I still would be threatening and might be able to go for more strength in such a situation. It is of course a bit tricky to go for a bluff when the bluff itself is not enough to deter me from going for a war. Also, it's a bit greedy from him to go for the movie, but of course also somewhat understandable with the movie generating him in 8 additional culture production. He then goes for the communism. I, at my turn, had now a bit of a tough call to make. My first call was not that difficult. I think I have to use my politics phase. I need to hope that I get value out of my next politics phases, and I am in a strong position, I think, to win the impact of strength, so I seeded that into the deck. The impact of variety is revealed, which is sadly not ideal for me. I have not a good variety. I would have increased it a little bit at this turn by the professional sports, but I mean, I will just increase also a bunch of other impacts this turn, so it is like it is. And this turn I needed to find the right degree or the right mix of still being threatening, but also preparing for a peaceful outcome of this game without a war. The problem being that both of my opponents are running a bit away with the culture. Both of them don't have a wonder, but there is actually the space flight left. And yeah, so I needed to figure out a turn where I stay at least somewhat competitive in a peaceful way. As I'm not that much behind it, there would be no hope left in case I don't draw a war. So now banking all on my next draw, which might be the last chance to go for a war, I think would be quite greedy and maybe too risky. But of course, if I draw a war, I still want to be set up to go for that war nicely. And I think the Manhattan Project helps me here to go for that right mix, because I will build it already this turn, and that will give me some strength, will make it that I remain threatening, but I, with having strong science production, will also get at least a fine amount of culture out of it. And so for this turn I will go for the Manhattan Project. I will build one professional sports using the Urban Growth 3 as you can see instead of the Urban Growth 2. The problem being, or the argument being, that I just need one more resource that I save here. That was one thing about the turn that I didn't like that much, but at the end I was fine with potentially just the Urban Growth being discarded. But like this, I can build a professional sports, and with the last civil action I can finish the Manhattan Project. I can go for this one upgrade, and as you can see I have now 10 resources at the next turn. I have the Patriotism in hand, meaning I can always, if I should draw a war, declare the war and go for 2 tanks, which would put me at 81 strength. But what I can also do is, if there are air forces available, and I was hoping that that might be the case, because that would mean that Gandin has no air forces available, which might be something that needs to be the case in order to actually go for war against him. Then I can also go for 2 air forces, putting me at 86 strength, so you can see I am threatening decent numbers here, and so I was really hoping to draw a war. If I should draw no war, then the military pressure might still do something good, because maybe my opponents need to spend some actions in order to be safe, which could maybe deter them from going for the space flight, which is the last wonder. So if my pressure now leads to me at least having a shot at getting the space flight, which is a decent wonder with me going for those computers early, and then the other players being not getting any wonder, then maybe that could also be a fine outcome for me. So I felt like the pressure will maybe either lead to a successful war from me, or hopefully it will lead to me getting the space flight. At least that's what I was hoping. And now, I of course was very excited to see what draw I will be getting, and I was thinking that maybe I will need a war in order to win this game, but with getting the space flight and maybe some strong impacts if I don't get a war, then I also might have a shot at winning this peacefully still. Impact of science, colonies, I have impact of strength already in the deck, could be some interesting impacts. So I get my draw here, and I was not too happy about it. I don't get an impact, I don't get a war. I actually get the shock groups, which also would have increased my strength potential, but without a war it might not be that relevant now. I get another aggression, maybe that could be fine to have, but overall I was rather disappointed about the draw. It's Eepogi's turn. Spaceflight is not revealed yet. He seeds, and impact of balance is revealed. Sadly, also not a great impact for me. Again, an impact that is quite a bit better for both of my opponents. So with that, not getting impacts, not getting a war, now 2 impacts already being revealed that were quite bad for me. No, I was not too optimistic about being able to win this game. But let's see if I get the space flight. Maybe there might be something possible, and if I maybe get one more draw to get a nice impact, and maybe I could have a chance of getting the aggression off. My opponents of course don't know that I have no war in hand, so they have to be careful. Eepogi building an air force, taking the modern infantry. He again doesn't have a chance to grab the rockets. He could have had a chance to grab the tanks, but made the decision to instead take the reserves. Maybe also wanting to deny them from Gandin, potentially decreasing his strength potential. But he doesn't take the tanks, and maybe if the rockets are on the row, I could, if I would have had a war, could have denied the rockets, and he then just couldn't have gone for any great tactic. But even without a better tactic, he still threatens somewhat decent numbers. He could, for example, build 2 modern infantries and an air force, and that already would put him at the high 60s. Maybe he can even do a bit more with all of the resources that he's having. So he could go for a decent amount of strength, but I would be able to win a war if I maybe can deny the rockets. Gandin, at his turn, takes the military theory, takes the air forces. That makes him relatively safe, which is not too bad. I can't go for a war anyway, and at least he has to spend a lot of civil actions. There's still no space flight on the row, but there will be 4 cards revealed, and I was hoping that now the space flight will be revealed, so that while I can't go for a war, at least I will be the only player who gets a wonder. And then Gandin takes the professional sports. He gets some draws going. He indeed had the 2nd copy of the mechanized army. And here I was a little bit disappointed, and I have to tell you that because it will influence my politics phase, which I want to talk about first. because sadly the spaceflight will remain in the last two cards not being revealed, and both of my opponents played it very well. Both of them left themselves with exactly 16 resources. Both of them are able to take and finish the spaceflight even if it stays in the 3 civil action area. So with the spaceflight being the last two cards and the age being guaranteed to end, I know that I won't get the spaceflight, and that for Eepogi it will just be the best thing to do to get the spaceflight. However, at this point of the game, the other game that you saw in the video before was still not finished, and if you remembered, while it was not looking perfect, I still had some hope until the end to potentially win the game. And at this point of the game, I looked at Eepogi getting the spaceflight, and I just thought, it being able to win this game, finishing before Eepogi, who is now the player who will get the space flight, is just not possible, and I was now just mainly focusing on finishing before Gandin, hoping that I will be able to win the other game, which, as you already know, I sadly didn't manage to win. So at this point we know already that I need to win this game, but that is now looking quite desperate. And with that, I needed to make a decision about which player I play the armed intervention on, and I need to play an armed intervention. I need to hope that it just goes through, and Eepogi would need 3 defense cards, while Gandin would need 2. Gandin missed out on some draws early on, but also had a Colossus draw, so Eepogi had more draws. But still, with Gandin only needing 2 cards, maybe my chance against Eepogi for a successful aggression would be bigger. But I did some calculations, and I certainly have chances to finish before Gandin, but I thought that I might need to swing against him. I might need to hope, and at least I have a bunch of colonization cards in hand, so there is a decent chance that maybe Gandin doesn't have that many left for himself. Also, if I go for Eepogi, the military alliance will be cancelled, which could still turn out to be useful and could make it easier for me to win the impact of strength. And with all of that, I decided to deploy an armed intervention against Gandin. And I was really hoping for it to get through, because if that aggression fails, then my chances in the game are getting really slim. But it is actually successful. I'm getting closer to Gandin. I get 7 additional culture, and with that, there is some hope remaining. I certainly will go for the democracy this turn, taking it, developing it. I just have more than enough science to support this democracy. It will also be helpful for some impacts like progress and government, also culture potentially. And then there were 2 main options that I considered. The first idea, and also just a very clean turn, is to take the movies, develop them, use the urban growth 2 to build one that gets me out of corruption, then use the last 2 civil actions to take the endowment, which will net me 6 additional culture. So that's just a perfectly clean turn, and also the turn that I thought I might just go for. But one thing that I considered was, I'm now at 66 strength, I have no impact in hand, but I have this armed intervention. If I now build some tanks instead of the movie and maybe reveal the shock troops tactic, then I just make it a lot more certain that I can deploy this armed intervention at the next turn again, making it maybe that I can get another swing against Gandin. Gandin could maybe build 2 air forces and then he would be safe, but it would at least mean that he doesn't really increase his culture production, maybe doesn't prepare for impacts as nicely as he can. And with that, I thought about building some strength, but I thought that maybe even with me not going for that much pressure, Gandin still wants to build a bit more strength. Maybe with both him and Eepogi being at 7 science, him losing the tiebreaker for impact of science, maybe he wants to build a lab. So I was hoping that even if I now go for this peaceful line, he is not just he maybe still needs to build a bit of military, and I just gain an additional movie production this turn and another additional one at the next turn, so it's just a lot of culture that I wouldn't miss out on. And at this point, maybe I have to hope for something, and one thing that I could hope for is that I go for this movie turn and then I just draw a very strong impact. So instead of getting the armed intervention, I get the maximum amount of culture for myself and a strong next politics phase. So that's maybe something that I need to hope for. And also, Eepogi, the only thing that he can do is just take and finish the spaceflight, or he can of course do a lot of other things, but I think that should be clearly the best thing for him to do, and then he will remain on 44 strength, so even if I don't draw an impact and Gandin gets stronger, at least I can deploy the armed intervention against Eepogi. So I, at the end, just went for that very clean turn with going for movies, building one, taking the endowment, and then hoping that I maybe will get a strong impact here. And let's see what I draw. I will also reveal the shock troops tactic for 1 additional strength. And the draw is actually a nice impact. The impact of science could be quite strong. If Gandin doesn't build an additional science building, it will give me plus 14 against him, and if not, plus 14 against Eepogi. So I was quite happy about it, and that gave me some hope at this point of the game that I might finish at the second place. At my next turn, I knew that I needed to win this game, and with that, at least also gives me a bit of hope that I can somehow overtake Eepogi. It's Eepogi's turn now, and the last round starts. He will offer me an international tourism, which I happily accept. He will go for the space flight now, so I gain 4 culture. He only gains 3 cultures. It's a benefit for me against both players. Eepogi gets some culture against Gandin. Eepogi then finishes the space flight for 23 points. That's all that he does. Bit annoying that that was in the last 2 cards of the deck and that I didn't have a chance to take it for myself. Now it's Gandin's turn. He will develop the civil service. He doesn't see it. And I was interested on how he plays his turn. Will he just focus on culture reduction? Will he invest a lot into the military? Will he build that lab in order to make sure to be better prepared for the impact of science? He will increase his population a bunch of times. Goes for the professional sports, builds a cannon, goes for an upgrade there, and indeed does build a lab, going up to 8 science. Which also improves his impact of balance, but that one is of course already out. So he makes sure to get stronger, at least forcing me to put a little bit of effort into getting stronger again. And then of course he can also build his warriors, now even at 70 strength. He doesn't really increase his culture reduction, but he builds this lab. At the end of the last turn, I would have thought that it would have been better for me that he doesn't build a lab, hoping that maybe I win the other game. But now, with knowing that I haven't won this game, maybe it's even good, because even with only getting plus 7 out of the impact of science against Gandin, there's still a hope that it still might be enough to finish before him. But now I actually have an impact of strength in the deck that gives me plus 14 against Eepogi. If I now again get stronger during my turn, I have an impact of science in the deck that again gives me plus 14 against Eepogi. There are some more impacts that potentially could score me some points. Maybe for some reason the impact of colonies could be in there. The impact of culture maybe could have been seeded by Gandin, but then of course he would have gone for a movie, so probably not. But yeah, maybe now that I need to hope to win the game, it's the better way around that Gandin is the second best in both impact of strength and science. Now it's my turn, and I just need to see the impact of science and need to get a strong impact in there. I was hoping that no impact will be revealed that I will improve during my turn. And I was a bit annoyed that the impact of progress is revealed, which sadly now was revealed after Gandin went for the civil service, but before I will go for the satellites, which I will still do, so I lose 6 culture out of the event being revealed a bit too early. And now that's again another setback, and again my hopes got a little bit less high with sadly that impact of progress being out now, because if that would have stayed in the deck, then that could have been another impact where I can gain some points against Eepogi and at least not fall behind too much Gandin, but now sadly this revealed just before I go for the satellites. Then during my turn I will play the endowment, I will increase my population, I will go for the satellites. The additional strength is helpful because that actually allows me to disband a rifleman to get another population, and that rifleman I could either now put into tanks with playing the patriotism and build an additional movie, and then I would even have enough resources to go for a farm upgrade. Or what I did instead, I went for building a professional sports and a movie, maximizing my culture reduction, and the professional sports could be nice for something like impact of architecture, which could have been potentially seeded by my opponents. So I go for that line and then just play the patriotism as the last civil action. Before the final impacts, we can see that I'm only 3 culture behind Gandin, and I have some good impacts in against him, but the gap to Eepogi is quite big, and maybe I would have needed this impact of progress to stay in the deck for a bit longer, to have somewhat realistic chances. But, I mean, I will get 2 quite strong impacts against him, so let's see how far that will carry me. The first impact being indeed the impact of strength, allowing me to overtake Gandin, getting closer to Eepogi. The second one is the another impact that I have knowledge about, the impact of science. As you can see, I'm now only 13 culture behind Eepogi. I have now a bit of a lead against Gandin. Then, however, there's a very strong impact for Gandin coming. It's the same for me and Eepogi, but it's actually 24 for Gandin, making it that he overtakes me again, being now at a 1 culture lead, but both of us are now relatively close to Eepogi, so it's definitely closer than it maybe looked when we just took a look at the overview. We have the impact of government, which is a relatively close one. I sadly gained the least out of it with 20. And now there's only one impact remaining, and that impact is the impact of wonders, which is actually a somewhat fine one for me, but also not really strong. I get 1 point closer to Gandin again, but sadly it's not enough, and I will actually lose the game at the end. So a relatively close finish, and yeah, I sadly was not able to win this game. And when we take a look at the standings soon, of course you know what that means. It sadly means that I will get relegated this season. I think I was actually mostly happier about how I managed to build up my civilization and how the game was going, especially with the Suez Canal. I think that played a big part. Having this vast territory in hand for Columbus was quite strong. Then being able to win the strategic territory, drawing the vast territory too. I think I got some nice tools to build up for the Suez Canal, and that Suez Canal then put me into a strong position. I think some things also went a bit unfortunate. The early foray being revealed, my opponents having first the Open Borders Agreement pact and this very big scientific cooperation pact that they had ongoing for a long time. Then, of course, the Iconoclasm event was quite influential. Hard to say if it would have been better if that one would have stayed in a deck, because Maria still gave me quite a lot of value throughout the game. And yeah, then at the end, a bit unfortunate for me, not drawing any war, the spaceflight being in the last 2 cards, and then also the impact of progress being revealed at my last seat. If there would have been an impact revealed that I wouldn't have improved, then at least I would have finished at the 2nd position. Of course, depending on the other impact, but when we take a look at the ones that were in the deck, population I would have increased by 2, and government and wonders I wouldn't have increased at all. So I would have either tied or finished before Ghanen, but sadly the impact of progress came at the wrong time. And yeah, so I think some things went a bit unfortunate for me, and it would have been interesting to see how the game would have ended if I would have had a war available, or if I would have gotten the spaceflight. I'm not sure if it would have been enough. The spaceflight would have meant that I can't go for the movies as easily, but I maybe still would have been able to go for the democracy, and maybe with the impact of strength, it could have been a bit tricky. A war, I probably would have declared against Ghanen because the air forces, I think, stayed in the deck. So I think I didn't do any calculations because I just didn't have any war available, but I think I maybe could have denied the rockets from Eepogi, declared war against him, gotten a big swing against him, but then Gandin maybe would have finished the spaceflight. He set himself up very nicely with leaving himself with 16 resources, so who knows how that would have ended. I didn't do any calculations on how that maybe would have gone, so we don't know it. At the end, I at least got the armed intervention off. That was nice for me that Gandin didn't have the necessary defense cards, and then also drawing the impact of science. That gave me some hope again, but was not enough at the end, and with that I sadly lose the game. Eepogi wins it, and yeah, Gandin gets 2 points out of this game, and what that means for the standings we can take a look at now. And this result has quite some consequences for the standings. First of all, of course, the bad news for me, with losing yet another game, the gap is now way too big to be so that I'm able to overcome it. Meaning that even if I win the last game, I will finish last and I will get relegated. Of course, I am not happy about how the season went. Maybe with getting a win in the last game, I can at least make it that it's not looking too bad at the end, with at least being at 9 points. But that outcome of the game was also quite influential for Wolves, and actually you could even say that this impact of progress reveal was also quite influential for Wolves, because with Gandin now finishing at the 2nd position, he is actually overtaken by him. And Gandin, despite not having the greatest start into the season, with only 2 points, same as me, he managed to actually make the comeback now, stay in the league in his debut season in Grandmaster. So congratulations for him. That's already a nice achievement, just managing to stay in the league in Grandmaster. And then in the next season he can play again and maybe see if he can also aim for the title potentially. Wolves sadly will now get relegated. 13 points, still a solid result, but sometimes if it's close in the league, it can not be enough to stay in the league, which is the point in now. And Eepogi, with being able to win the game that we just saw, has actually a shot now at winning the league. Todd Silence is still in the lead with 17 points, but Eepogi is 2 points behind him. And the last game of the season will actually a game of me against Eepogi and Todd Silence. And Eepogi would win tiebreakers if he would finish before Todd Silence. So whoever of them finishes before the other will at the end win the league. So the next game that you will be seeing will, for me, there won't change anything in the standings, but the winner of the league will still be decided. And the good news for you is also that that last game will actually not only be commentated by me, but I will have both Eepogi and Todd Silence as a guest to commentate it with me together. So I hope you're looking forward to that finale of the season, seeing whether Todd Silence or Eepogi will be able to win the league. And yeah, so I hope you're looking forward to that. And then with that, I say thanks for watching. Have a nice time and see you in the next video.